Hi, Amy.
Abby.
Last night we watched Before the 90 Days, Season 7, Episode 5. And our bonus content today will cover The Other Way, Season 6, Episode 13.
In there.
We are. So in just 2 days, on October 2nd, we'll be releasing our very special podcast episode with David Dangerfield. Amy and I are both so looking forward to this conversation with David, and we can't wait to share it with all of you. David and Sheila are, of course, from Before the 90 Days, Season 6, and their story is an incredible one. So if you haven't yet seen it, I suggest you go watch their love story unfold because it's so inspiring.
It's a real tearjerker.
Yeah. Our interview with David will, of course, be available as a regular podcast, but you can also watch it in full on YouTube on our channel at 90 Day Fiancé Honestly. And the video will show David signing his answers to our questions for anybody who knows sign language. But for those of us who don't know ASL, David's interpreter will deliver his responses. So while the audio release will be condensed in order to eliminate any silences, the video release on YouTube will be comprised of the entire episode with David in the flesh.
Unedited.
That's right. Now, on with today's nonsense. Let's begin with Loren and Faith. Oh, joy. This is the most grossest moment of the entire episode. Dare I say the entire season. And Loren is saying the word gonorrhea far too many times.
With a smile on his face.
Of course. Because it just makes everybody smile to say gonorrhea. See? Now, Loren has to tell Faith that he's been cheating on her because of this lovely STD situation. So he and an unsuspecting Faith go out on another date, but before they can even get there, I have to mention this because we hear from Faith and she is so optimistic for her relationship with Loren. And her optimism just makes me cringe because I know what's coming. And this is a little bit of what I talked about last week. All her dreams are going to start being shattered one at a time by Loren's revelations. So she expresses to Loren that she's open to the idea of him staying with her in the Philippines if, in a couple of weeks, she feels that she knows him better and she actually likes what she knows about him. So I thought that was a pretty big concession to make.
Mm-hmm.
Also shows, again, how optimistic and happy she is about the way things are going between the two of them. But then they get to this beautiful waterfall, and it's the perfect, most romantic setting for revealing to your partner that you have an STD.
And that you've been cheating.
Yeah. So the way that he reveals it, which is just so awful, Loren tells Faith that they can't kiss. Again, all with a smile on his face, not Faith, with a smile on his face. He just, is he happy that he has an STD? Is that what's going on?
I don't know. It could be one of those like anxious, uncontrollable facial reactions he has, but he just seems to have that look on his face at all times. It's just gross. And then he also likens it, the gonorrhea, to food poisoning.
Of course. Naturally, Amy. It's the most comparable thing that you can think of, that I could think of course. When you think about gonorrhea, it's like food poisoning. Naturally. Yeah, I thought he could be talking about a cute puppy. He's just smiling. He seems so happy. He's upbeat. But in fact, he's telling his girlfriend, A, he has an STD, and B, he's been cheating on her. So yeah. Faith's response to all of this news is about what we expected, right? She calls him out for cheating on her. That's what she labels it, which is right and just and good. And she is clearly very hurt. Then Loren says he kinda feels guilty about what he's done. Just a little bit. And he just carries on like nothing's happened. He's chatty, he's smiley. Do you want to vomit? Because I sure do.
No, moving on. All is well, I've told her.
Of course.
Well. Let's continue on.
No, it's not like this is a serious topic that affects the person that he says he loves. he's behaving as if it's nothing. And even like there's something wrong with Faith if she doesn't immediately understand his situation or sympathize with him.
This also would have been a perfect conversation or a perfect time for them to have the conversation about monogamy and what it means to both of them and what it doesn't mean for him. But no, let's just push past this and continue on with our day, because he even said at the beginning he hopes that him telling her isn't going to ruin the day. I mean, it might do a little more than that, like ruin your relationship, perhaps?
Perhaps, because he still hasn't told her that what he wants from a relationship, and to your point, they should have talked about this. It was a good opportunity to discuss monogamy, is that he does not want to be monogamous, that he wants an open relationship. So he still has this monster in the closet that hasn't been let out yet. When is that going to happen?
Thing at a time.
Yeah, okay. It's too much. It's too much. He brushes off his cheating. Did you catch this as something that he didn't know he wasn't supposed to do?
Oh yeah, she should have known, which means that it's her fault.
Even worse. You should have known that I was doing this. Why didn't you know?
Well, we haven't met in person yet. So doesn't it just make sense that we're not going to be monogamous until we meet?
No.
Not at all.
No. All of this shows his complete lack of consideration for how his actions affect his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And the only positive that I found throughout the entirety of their segments was that at the end, at least Faith has the strength to ask for some time to herself, which obviously she's going to need, is justified. And yes, let's leave this man alone for a while, preferably forever, because it's not good.
No, it is not good. What is, I don't think this time's going to do very well for her. But I think that she needs to go back to the hotel, take some space, and go talk to Mama Ding.
That would be a great idea. Mm-hmm. I love Mama Ding, and she seemed very like somebody who's full of wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Are we ready to move on? Sure. Ready. Yes. Yeah. Let's go to Tigerlily and Adnan. So now we're at the big wedding celebration. The bride tells us that she is confused. Of all the emotions out there, confusion is the one that she tells us about.
On your wedding day. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I wonder, is she confused because she knows her husband about as well as she knows what's going to happen at her own wedding, which is to say not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the source of her confusion. And also, we addressed this last week as a question, who paid for the wedding? And I've now heard online from many different sources that Adnan is actually paid for everything, that he's very well off. So perhaps this is the case. We have no evidence one way or the other, but this is the supposition online. And especially in light of the fact that he did all of the planning for the wedding. And there was some talk about in Jordan how the groom's family takes care of everything. So this is all looking like it could be very true.
Just was it him who footed the bill, or was it his parents?
Yeah. I would suspect that it's his parents, given the fact that he is 22, still very young to have amassed such a fortune that you could pay for this incredibly lavish wedding. But good for him. If he's doing that, I think that's great. However, let's get back to Tigerlily. She's experiencing the first taste of the double standard that is now her life. Welcome, Tigerlily. Welcome. Welcome to reality.
It's about time. You know, had you done any research on the culture, you would have been prepared for this. But why would they do that?
Why would she? All she cares about is that her man looks good. So Adnan is shirtless in front of Tigerlily's female friend. And the double standard is that Tigerlily herself is not allowed to be alone with any male person, be it dressed or half-dressed or fully dressed. So that's one thing. The second thing that she wakes up to during this segment is that she realizes she's much less important at the wedding than Adnan is. And so she has to accommodate him and his desires and needs before her own. Okay.
Just at the
Fine.
wedding, right?
Oh, no, only just at the wedding, not forever. But it did make me think that perhaps these roles are going to reverse themselves when they move to the US, because I can't see her allowing this to continue. And my last comment on this part is that the wedding is so incredibly opulent that I feel a little bit sick about all the money that is being wasted on this. How did you feel?
I felt like, so when they were getting changed and she's like, I can't change because there's so many men here. Adnan was right in front of her. Why could she have not just said, we only have 10 minutes. I'm not allowed to change in front of men. What do you expect me to do at this point? Instead, she sits and she waits.
She
And then,
sulks.
yeah, and then he accosts her for not changing quickly and they're going to be late to their own wedding.
Mhm.
How dare you keep 200 people waiting?
Yeah, I think that they made that more of a mountain than it really was. It actually was a molehill, because the way that he just quickly brushed off and said, oh, but I love her and I realize this is our wedding and it doesn't matter in the scheme of things. For me, the salient issue was she has to set aside everything that she wants to do in order for him to do what he wants to do first.
Because it's his day.
Because it's his day, because he's the man, because that's what this relationship is, where the man is primary. And she's getting her first taste of it, and I don't think she likes it all that much.
I don't think so. But she loves him.
She does. She's got stars in her eyes, and everybody else can feel the love too.
Anyway.
Moving on. Niles and Matilda. He's packing. He's going to Ghana. Yay, great, fantastic. He's still very determined not to get married on this trip. There's a second little secret. I don't want to call it a secret, but that's the only word I can really think of. There's a second little piece of information that he has not yet related to Matilda that he needs to tell her when he gets there. And that's that his parents aren't supportive of their relationship, which is so sad.
It's unfortunate, but you can understand their concerns.
Completely. It's just sad that somebody like him, who's so sweet and happy, doesn't at least have the support of his parents. Even if he is making this trip to Ghana, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be ending up with Matilda. But my only hope really is that she doesn't squish his heart into oblivion, because I think she could quite easily.
Definitely think she could.
Yeah.
But he did say something fairly poignant that I think a lot of the cast members should take note of. I'm paraphrasing here, but he says that he's going to let love take a back seat and make good decisions.
Yes. I love that. He's so sensible. That really shines through about his personality, which I really enjoy. Again, we're talking about a couple that is seemingly real. And this, I think, is what excites you and me most about 90 Day Fiancé couples, is when they actually have characteristics or qualities that makes you be able to relate to them more closely, like David and Sheila. So Niles and Matilda seem like they're on that same route to being real and honest and true, which I love.
I'm concerned, though, because when they were talking to Matilda, or when Matilda was talking to her mom, she said, Uncle needs to start planning this wedding because we're going to get married a couple days after he gets here, or something to that effect. I think I said this last week too. I think she's just going to steamroll him into this wedding.
Yeah, there were two things that were very clear from finally getting a chance to meet with Matilda and see what she's all about. And those two things for me were, one, she definitely wants to move to the US for better opportunities. She really has a rough life. And two, she is definitely planning her wedding to Niles during this trip. Scary, scary stuff.
I thought it was also poignant when one of her friends asked if he was sending her money, and she was like, well, why would you be with someone if they don't give you money?
Yeah.
So he's been sending her money. I assume, based on what we've seen so far, that she's with him for the financial stability.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Brian and Ingrid. Horror. Okay.
He felt judged. Poor Brian. He felt judged.
This guy. You start off telling a sob story about how lacking in compassion Ingrid is. Hello, excuse me? I want to choke him.
Mm-hmm.
She's been nothing but kind and considerate of him. She's been adjusting to him, dealing with all of this stuff that he's throwing at her. And he's been demanding, secretive. He's been manipulative. He's also a little bit weird, but she has the problem.
Yeah. He's on a manipulation power trip.
Wow. Is he ever?
Yeah. He's trying to push and push and push and see just how much he can get away with.
And he won't give her the time to really absorb what she's learning about him, to adjust to it, to take it all in. She's clearly struggling with her feelings, and he's just trying to get her to move as quickly as possible down the path that he has determined for her already.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, she feels like she's on unstable ground. Brian is not who he said he was. And she has to navigate now to determine what's real, what's not real about him, if she's willing to accept those things that she's learning about him. And more importantly, is he being deceptive or not? Because she doesn't know. This is their very first meeting.
Well, she did say that she was struggling because he was hiding his past. So she acknowledges that he's been hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to reconcile with, what she believes, whatever comes out of his mouth versus the reality.
Yeah.
She's got to be really confused at this point. And he gives her no time to digest. He acknowledges that she asked for space, and yet he goes out of his way to buy her flowers and stop by her house.
Oh,
Is
that
that
part.
even remotely respectful of her time and her space? No. He
No.
love bombs. He inserts himself in there. And I think that was his way of not letting her think things through and to be able to meet the kid.
Yeah, this side of Brian really, really worries me. She sets a boundary. She says, I want some time alone. I don't want you to meet my son yet. I'm not ready for that. And he completely ignores it. It's such a big red flag when he goes to her house. He imposes on her. He obviously knows that her love language is gifts, because she melts as soon as she gets the flowers from him. And she invites him into her house, even though she said, no, I don't want you to meet my son yet previously. So the way that he's imposing himself into Ingrid's life and into Ingrid's son's life makes me think that he's doing it because he wants to form a bond with the son, which will then compel Ingrid to stay in the relationship with him for her son's sake. It's completely insidious.
She wants to guilt him, or he wants to guilt her into letting him stay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really tragic in a way for me, because when we saw that she was hesitant for Brian to meet her son, to introduce him to her son, she was very strong, and she had stood up and said, no, like, this is my boundary. I don't want to do this. I want to have a chance to listen to my gut, to figure out what is going on in my heart, rather than rushing towards this relationship. And he completely took all of that away from her.
Disgusting.
Yeah. On that note, shall we move on to the next disgusting person? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, let's talk about Rayne, and let's talk about Chidi as well. She's back, the chicken lady who knows the inner workings of the universe better than all of us combined, as well as all of science and religion too. She's an ultimate authority. She knows. She says Chidi is misguided by his faith because he won't sleep with her. Holy high horse, Batman. Like, what?
Because he's changed his mind. And is he ashamed of flirting with her and talking about sex before he made this change of his decision? Well, that phrasing's weird. But it's just so, what's the word?
Condescending?
Yeah.
Disrespectful? She makes his faith like this big, so small, by saying stuff like that you're misguided. But then she kind of backpedals a little bit. I think she realized that maybe she overstepped. And she says to Chidi, oh, I'm only asking for more affection. She says, that's all I really want. But I remember a different Renee before she went to Nigeria who seemed kind of hell bent on getting somewhere a little bit further than just affection. Yeah.
I think her asking for that is the foot in the door technique. You ask for something small before you ask for something big. And then she tries to manipulate the situation by apologizing. And Chidi even said he's never heard her apologize before. So this is huge. So I think she's using that as a tactic to be like, hey, I'm only asking for this. I've apologized just to get what she wants. Huge.
I really liked how Chidi described what he sees and hears when they're at the nature park. It was quite poetic.
Vivid.
Yeah. And I love the way he told the story of how he went blind. Again, it was a little bit more detail this time. But Renee's response to this story is very interesting. She says that if Chidi could see, if he wasn't blind, she would not be there. So,
Right.
in other words, she sees their circumstances, including his blindness, as somehow divinely ordained so that they could meet.
Hey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should we just check her into an asylum now? Because this delusional kind of thinking is very concerning. And the way that she's positioning Chidi's blindness as just merely a tool along the path for them to come together and meet, I'm sure he would really much rather have his sight than to have met Renee.
100%. 100%.
And he is understandably worried about her talking in this way because it really does show arrogance. The way that she's speaking about this has me thinking that she believes she knows more than God, Chidi's God, which, as he put it, is very insulting.
I want to scream the word ignorance.
Yeah, very much. Big, big ignorance.
I wanted to add that so I did a little bit of research on glaucoma, and it is typically due to the damage to the optic nerve from pressure on the eye. So it is entirely possible that he gets pummeled in the face with this apple at just the right place with the right trajectory to cause that pressure on the eye to then lead to glaucoma. But I mean, there are just so many variables at play. It's difficult to determine whether or not that was actually it, but that was the trauma.
And we are not doctors.
No, of course we're not doctors. I was just interested to see how the injury could have led to glaucoma and whether or not variables. I don't know. I was just was interested in learning more.
Interesting to know. And yes, there is a real reason why he went blind. And as crazy as it sounds to be hit in the head with an apple, and then for that to lead to blindness, and then to bump into a table with your eye, and for that to lead to blindness in the other. I mean, it's such a sad story, and yet, strange things happen.
Just a crazy series of events.
Yeah. The last couple for this week are Sunny and Veah. Now, Veah is packing for South Africa. She's crying over the upcoming journey. Clearly, Rory is Veah's emotional support human because he's doing everything for her. And Veah, of course, is hoping that Sunny will propose to her on this trip, which is news to Rory. I'm glad she's got him with her because he definitely has a kind of instinct that maybe she's rushing into stuff. Maybe she's being a little bit foolish. So at least we have a voice of reason in Rory.
When you put in the laughing face emoji, I know that Rory likes to speak in emojis, or at least, give subtle jabs with said emojis.
Yes, he is an emoji insulter. All right. So did you hear when they were at the airport together, Rory called Veah baby? Do you have your passport, baby? Am I the only one who heard that?
I missed that.
Understandable, since they have been a couple before, but he should not be calling her that now, especially not in front of Sunny.
And not in front of the cameras.
No.
If he let that slip so naturally, I wonder if that's just a common thing in their relationship. And no. I still think that she needs to, I think they both need to go to counseling and then to revisit getting back together. Because obviously there's that comfort, there's that trust. And yet here she is flying around the world with her emotional support person.
Mm-hmm.
And she hasn't even told Sonny that he's coming.
I know.
And they also haven't talked about, because she says that she doesn't want Rory to meet Sonny right away. She wants to wait a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they don't even talk about what's going to happen at the airport.
I know. The whole plan is just ridiculously stupid. Well, she does sort of have a plan because she says she's going to keep Rory a secret for a day or two until she feels comfortable. Then she'll tell Sonny that Rory is there. That is technically a plan, I think. As misguided as it may be, it is still a plan. No, I have nothing more to say on the subject of this week's couples of before. Do you?
I definitely do not know.
Right. So in next week's preview, we see that Brian's story is getting even better than before. Loren has his head definitely stuck in the clouds. Matilda and Miles will finally meet, but he gets a very worrying warning about her temper. Also meeting for the first time are Veah and Sonny, of course, and maybe or maybe not Rory. We don't know. Rayne provokes Chidi's sister, and this may be the time when we see that Renee's prophecy will come true. And finally, Tigerlily is annoyed at the double standard that is now her life.
Quelle surprise.
Nobody saw this one coming at all. And now let's move on to bonus content time. It's The Other Way, Season 6, Episode 13. We start off with Sean and Joanne. Okay. So
That's what I say about that.
It's time for Joanne to speak to her boys on her own to get to the truth of what they're feeling. And the boys are very quiet. So you can tell they're super hurt. They don't know what to say. The one question that they ask is, are we moving? And the fact that Joanne can't even answer that with any certainty whatsoever just makes things worse.
Absolutely.
Because these kids, they just want stability from their mom, from their life. They've just had the rug completely ripped out from under them, and she doesn't even have any answers for them.
And their trust has been completely broken.
Yeah. And this would have been so avoidable if Sean and Joanne had been upfront about their relationship from the beginning. This is just a projection, not real. They would have had time to adjust. The kids would have had time to adjust. And maybe their actual dad would have also seen how things were changing so that he and Joanne might have had an opportunity to have a conversation and figure out how things were going to be before the subject of where the kids would live came up, which would have allowed them at least to get a straight answer to their question. Like, not so complicated. You are, after all, the adults in this situation. These are the kids, and it's your responsibility to have the answers, to know what to tell them, to be able to guide them. And she cannot.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. These poor kids.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so bad for them. She had such an opportunity to make it this clean announcement had she actually had any plans. But they both said that, they were just so blinded by love and didn't think about anyone else. Selfish, selfish, selfish. You have young kids that you have to consider, and you considered no one.
Except themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other person in this equation is Noelle, and Joanne knows full well that she's in trouble with Noelle. Noelle gets on the phone immediately with Joanne's mom. They talk about what's just been revealed. But this is also, on the good side, on the plus side, a time when Noelle can tell Joanne's mom that Sean is actually genuine, that he's a good man. So that's a good thing. But the whole situation is such a mess, and nobody seems to be on Sean and Joanne's side, which I think is completely understandable. These guys have behaved very badly, and they've made a horrible, horrible situation for their children, all three of them.
Absolutely. Yep. Way to screw things up.
Yeah. A+ on screwing up.
I loved it when she told the kids that they were the most important thing in her life, but they weren't important enough to be in the know or even included
Yeah.
in the decision, in the wedding, nothing.
I know. And how heartbreaking would that be, especially for the daughter, probably for the sons as well. I don't want to be sexist here, but for your kids to know that you've already had a wedding and they were not allowed to participate in it, because that would be a great opportunity for them to bond with you and your husband, to be as a family and to really feel included. And of course, a lot of people have little moments in their wedding ceremonies where they acknowledge the children, if it's a blended family, and include them in on the ceremony so that they do feel that sense of connection with you. And they, all of that, nope, gone. Nope, not happening. Sad. All right, next. James and Natalia. So what do you think of the fact that first off, we hear that Tata is hiding her emotions for the sake of not fighting with James? Is this a good thing to do in a relationship?
Bottling it up is always a great decision. I say. See, Scotch
Yeah.
agrees.
Oh, yes.
And I don't think that she's really hiding anything. I think she's just being avoidant.
Yeah.
But like with the amount that she cries anyway, I don't think it really matters. I think she's just not being smart and or emotionally intelligent when it comes to anything. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I agree that bottling up is definitely A plus, fantastic technique to employ to avoid fighting. Okay, no, it's not. You don't shove all your emotions down. You don't hide what you're feeling. Yes, you may take some time to keep it to yourself for a little while until you're ready to speak about it, but generally speaking, it's good to tell your partner how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so James says that he's ready to restart a jewelry business that he and Tata had going in the US. Is this the first time we're hearing about this? I don't think I've heard about it before.
I don't think I heard about it before either.
Because the banana chip business, as we know, is not really going to be sufficient income for them to live off. So that's
Yes, I know.
Meryl, that's a plan. He also brings up the subject of their dog Jojo, who is still in the US. James says he can't bring Jojo over until they know if they're staying in Indonesia for sure. So this is a new topic. We're talking about possibly going back to the US. Because if they bring the dog over to Indonesia, but they don't stay, then there's this weird thing that he talks about where Jojo may not be allowed to go back to the US at all. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
he does say some rather strange things. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he loves his dog and doesn't want to leave his dog either in the US while he lives in Indonesia or leave the dog in Indonesia when he goes back to the States. But I think generally speaking, we're seeing that they are going to go back to the States because they can't make money. They've left their dog. They have this thing with the car back in the States that needs to be sold or paid off, something. I think that's probably a pretty good guess for the future, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
So when he brings up this subject of maybe not staying in Indonesia if they can't get financially stable there, which seems unlikely, Tata says maybe she'd be okay with having to go back, but only as a last resort. And then he reveals that he does not want kids. He says that to us directly, not to her. But to her, he gives her a hypothetical. What if I told you that I didn't want to have kids? Would I be enough? I hate it when people ask that question.
Manipulative.
It's two separate things. Wanting kids has nothing to do with how much you love your husband or how much you're devoted to your marriage. This is something that you talk about before you get married so that you're both on the same page and you don't end up in a situation where one of you desperately wants to have kids and one of you is dead set against it, and then you have to split up.
I think it's so ridiculous because Tata keeps going on about how, Jojo completes their family and she needs to be able to see the dog and, can they go visit, blah, 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 blah. But then she goes on saying a child would complete their family. So, which is it? And if you get pregnant, does Jojo just not exist anymore? She's so immature. It's so hard for me to wrap my head around her thought process.
Mm-hmm.
But these two should not be procreating. I'm just going to say that. These two are not, excuse me, smart enough, mature enough to, excuse me, to raise a child.
Well, I agree in that they should have been
Right
mature
now.
enough.
Right
Yes. Now, absolutely. There's that caveat. Now is not the time because they don't have an income, which James acknowledged last week, and they haven't really had the forethought to sort this out before they got married until this point. Now it is very juvenile of them, the way that they're approaching this situation, and for her to want to put a band-aid on the relationship by saying, oh, we should have a kid, that will bring us closer. So misguided, so wrong. That's not the reason why you have kids, and especially when you don't have an income so that you can't even support them when they get there. Yeah, I agree, they should not be having kids at this moment. It's wrong.
And then he also brings up, what happens if he goes back to Indonesia? Is she going to abandon him and Jojo? Because him leaving her in Indonesia would not be him abandoning her. And didn't they both abandon the dog? Like,
good point. Yeah.
All
Double
right.
standard. No, do not proceed.
Need that. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's go to Josh and Lily. This incredibly short segment. Josh is a surprise for Lily because she's been feeling disconnected and underappreciated. So he takes her to a dance lesson, and she loves it. It brings them closer. The end.
The dance was lovely.
Corona and Inky. This was the comedic relief of the episode, you have to admit. It was good. It was good for comedic relief.
Yes.
Corona joins a group of Black Icelanders dressed in her very best BDSM outfit because hanging out with a bunch of middle-aged expats in Iceland means you must break out the pink leather and black spikes. Of course, we all do. I've got mine ready to go for my next meeting with expats. Sure, why not?
What's your Sunday best?
No, not Sundays. Sundays I wear black. No pink. No pink on Sundays. Yeah.
Okay.
So the issue of working in Iceland is brought up, and these people talk about the reality of what life is like, how it can be very difficult for somebody like Corona to work as an outsider, especially as she doesn't speak the language. Sensible.
Yeah.
Yes, we're nodding our heads. But this is all a farce because Corona never really intended to live in Iceland, give up her prestigious master's program in the US. Why would you study and work for years, literally years, finally getting into your dream master's program, only to give it up, to move to Iceland where you cannot work or study for the sake of a boyfriend? Not a fiance, not a husband, a boyfriend. No, you would not. No. And then Corona decides to go see about a midwifery program in Iceland, which she would like to pursue in English. Let's just mention what.
Before we talk about that, I just wanted to mention that I thought that her behavior in front of these expats was just so incredibly over the top. She was so animated and just so giggly, and it was so overdone, so overacted, and I found it extremely, extremely irritating. I feel like she came on so strong that the people, had I been there, I think I would have been I think I physically would have removed or pushed myself away from her because she was just raw. Look at me, I'm doing all these things. Oh.
Well, don't you think that is very representative of the reason why she's there? Because she just wants to be on TV. So she is being overly dramatic and crazy in these
attention seeking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's painful. It's very painful to watch.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Please
Yeah.
continue.
No. Okay. So the midwifery program in Iceland. Okay. She wants to do it in English. The program has already started. Another very important part. I mean, she didn't even look into it to know that she was going to be arriving in Iceland partway through the school year. Fake alert.
And applications were due 2 weeks ago. I mean, way to just miss the cutoff.
The charade has got to stop. I mean, taking an Icelandic language class at the same time as taking a midwifery master's degree is absurd. Anyone who's smart enough to get into an Ivy League school like she did would know better than to think that it's possible to both learn a language from basic at the same time as taking your master's degree in that very same language. It's like saying, I'm going to go learn how to play tennis at the same time that you're saying, oh, I'm going to learn how to walk as well.
Yeah.
At the same, just no, it does not happen. No, go away.
I just call BS on the whole relationship, and we've been saying that since the very beginning.
Moving on. No Dempsey and Statler this week. And wow, no Shekinah and Sarper this week. But as usual, no thank you.
I didn't even notice.
Before we go, if you're enjoying the 90 Day Fiancé Honestly podcast, please subscribe to or give our show a follow. And if you have an additional moment, please rate us and help other 90 Day fans to find our show.
And
Thanks
don't
for
forget,
listening.
October 2nd, David Dangerfield.
Nobody will forget.
It's
going to be awesome.
So excited.
So exciting. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.